Whether you're on mouse and keyboard, controller, your phone, or lost in virtual reality, there was always something to play in 2024. From expansive open-world adventures and addicting JRPGs to the most unique roguelikes you've ever seen in your life. And now as we close the door on 2024 and prepare for the mess of upcoming games we get in 2025, it's time to look back on some of the best gaming experiences that we got from this rotation around the sun. But of course, we've heard all about those big budget AAA games, which is why on this channel, we're all about the indies. Hey there, I'm CGDannyB and I really like indie games. I like sharing them with you guys. And you're watching my annual video where I get to gush about my favorite indie games from this year. This year I got to review a bunch of dope indie games, as well as start my very own podcast where I also get to review indie games. So I have had no shortage of things to play this year, which means neither of you. But I say all that to make it clear just how difficult it was for me to pick my favorites for this list. Going all the way back to January to check out my content from earlier this year, going through my Steam and PlayStation libraries, and even trying to cram in a few more games before the Indie Game Awards, I am terrified to see how many hours I spent gaming this year. But I'll worry about my own inability to touch grass and get vitamin D later, because right now, I gotta tell you about some indie games. But first, we got some rules we gotta set in place. So to simplify this list, I am only including games that are originally released in 2024. So sorry Slay the Princess, I really enjoyed you, but the re-release doesn't count. Also, I'll be excluding any early access games that didn't hit their 1.0 by the time I'm recording this video. So sorry to all of these games. But if any of you shadow drop your full release to make me look like an asshole, shame on you. Because Supergiant, I'm expecting that from you. Like who shadow drops in May? There were like 50 other games to play. And that's really it. Simple, right? So let's get started with my number 10 game from 2024. So this number 10 spot tends to be where my favorite massively popular multiplayer game lands, and this year is no exception. So Helldivers, let's spread some democracy. Back in 2015, when PlayStation Plus subscribers got the original Helldivers for free, the game didn't really hit for me. I thought it was fine, but never really stuck around. But by dropping the top-down gameplay and making it this insane, over-the-top third-person shooter, Helldivers 2 took the world by storm. You couldn't throw a strategically placed stratagem without hitting someone who's played or was dating someone who played Helldivers 2. Like, seriously. I went to a doctor's appointment and my nutritionist was telling me all about how her husband was screaming about freedom and democracy from the game room, which honestly was pretty cool. Helldivers was one of those gaming phenomenons that made it feel like we were just a few steps away from world peace, even considering the subject matter of the game. At the beginning of this year, the world was all about democracy. At least in terms of the game anyway. I'm still trying not to think about that election right now. My personal favorite thing about Helldivers 2 was that in a game that was so intense and all about squashing bugs and robots or die trying, it was so hard to get mad at. Even when your friends were dropping nukes on your head on accident. Or on purpose. Do it, Connor, right now, do it!
Danny said!
But the amount of times I got to play this game with my friends and just have a loud, obnoxious time was incredible.
Do you see out there?
No.
Look.
At what?
Out there is freedom.
Okay.
Out there, they need democracy.
Just so you know, if we're inactive for 15 minutes, they kick us out of the server.
Okay, let's go.
Now I'm sure some of you guys were thinking, wait, Helldivers is an indie game? Yep, it sure is. Arrowhead is an independent studio in Sweden. So next time you hear someone say indie games are just small, pixel art games made by a team of 2 or 3 people, be sure to remind them that they enlisted to join the Helldivers. Periodically, I find myself thinking, is it too late to learn karate when I'm about to turn 30 this year? And ultimately, I find the answer is no, but that sounds like a big commitment, and I think I'd rather live out that fantasy by waiting for the series finale of Cobra Kai. But this year, I was surprised by a dope karate game that also had me rethinking that decision. Karate Survivors came out just a few months ago, and this game had no reason having me as hooked as it did, and I love that. There are so many Vampire Survivor clones out there, most of which sort of copy-paste the formula, but Karate Survivors adds unique combat mechanics to make it stand out from the crowd. Step into the shoes of a martial arts master and take down hordes, and I mean hordes, of thugs, grunts, and bosses with nothing but your hands, feet, and whatever random junk you can find lying around. But the thing that makes Karate Survivors different from the other roguelikes in its class is how you build your loadout. As you level up your character, you unlock new karate moves and add them to the queue at the bottom of the screen. So as the cycle resets, you'll initiate your combo on anybody in your area. It'll start out fairly slow with only 1 move at a time, but eventually evolve into 6 moves that can create some devastating combos. Especially if you can place them in numerical order, because if you can get a chain of numbers, they'll do additional damage or add extra effects to your moves, making you even more deadly than before. And of course, as you complete challenges and take down bosses, you unlock new skills, like wall running, making your weapons last longer, increase health, damage, etc. All those fun bells and whistles that these games are known for. And much like the game that inspired it, Karate Survivors was so addicting I never wanted to put the game down. Just one more run would turn into 3 more runs, 5 more runs, 3 more hours of gameplay. And that's the way to tell you got a good game. Karate Survivors isn't the type of game that's going to tug at your heartstrings and make you cry yourself to sleep at night, or the type of game that'll get you hype clips for your MLG montage on YouTube. But it's the type of game that you love to want to keep playing, all the way until you reach that final boss and complete that last level. Then you get to play the new Endless mode that generates random items and arenas for you to test your skills in. The only thing about Karate Survivors that's going to haunt me for the rest of my life is that I was supposed to do a live stream for their Steam page. But unfortunately, I was sick as a dog when I got the request, so they ended up replacing me with these kind of funny scrubs. Jerks. No. I think I've got a problem. Coming in at number 8, we've got a game that I nearly missed this year, but thanks to the 6-1 team inviting me to be a judge for the Indie Game Awards, I actually got a chance to play Children of the Sun. If you aren't familiar with the game, Children of the Sun is basically a sniper puzzle game, where your goal is to take out one dude after another with some gnarly headshots in order to clear out this evil cult. Starting out, you'll just have your handy hunting rifle wielded by the girl, our otherwise nameless protagonist with a score to settle. Each level of Children of the Sun allows you to search around the map from your vantage point and mark all the bad guys that you can see. And once you take aim and land a shot on your first victim, you'll have the freedom to aim your bullet again. Sometimes at another enemy, or in the right circumstances, you can take out the gas tank of a car or another obstacle to eliminate multiple enemies at once. Just know you won't have a lot of leadway when it comes to curving your shots once you fire. So if you miss your target, you have to start the level all over again. Children of the Sun has this interesting loop of having to find the right order of taking out your targets. Perhaps on your first try, you skip someone that you physically could never hit again if you tried. So you have to start again in hopes of doing everything in the right order this time. It was such a unique thing for me to have to build the red yarn path in my head of which enemies I had to take out in which order, so I could ultimately clear the zone and move on to the next puzzle. And though Children of the Sun is certainly an unorthodox puzzle game, it's still a puzzle game nonetheless. So for you folks who might immediately get turned off by the shooter aspect of the game, don't let that deter you from playing Children of the Sun. That's almost like not wanting to play pinball because you have to use a spring to launch the ball onto the board. And unless you have a paralyzing fear of springs, that sounds pretty silly, doesn't it? So, if you're ready for a new type of puzzle game, I can't recommend you check out Children of the Sun enough. So just in case you haven't been paying attention to the Game Awards last few weeks, we got our brand new Game of the Year with Astrobot. And seeing this adorable little guy win Game of the Year and making grown men cry because Monkey Souls didn't win does put a little bit of joy in my heart. Twisted, I know. And this joy doesn't solely come from Astrobot beating other games, but it shows that a 3D platformer can still be recognized for Game of the Year. Which leads me into what is probably my favorite indie 3D platformer for this year. Taxi! This is Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom, a 3D platformer that requires the player to drive a taxi. Sounds simple enough, right? Well, it's not as cut and dry as it sounds. This platformer doesn't have a dedicated jump button, meaning you're going to have to use your car's unusual ability to stop on a dime and spin yourself into the air to reach higher locations. And though this may sound simple on paper, it's pretty challenging at first, slamming the grill of your car into the wall over and over again just trying to climb up onto a ledge. But eventually your muscle memory will kick in and you'll be platforming with the best of them. Now, I was not a crazy taxi kid growing up, but something about Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom gives this feeling of nostalgia based solely on its controls and visual style. During my first playthrough of Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom, I remember going from level to level, getting to experience how different each environment was. From an open zone aquatic area with gears sunken below the water, to the busy city levels that required me to actually do my job as a taxi, and drop people off at their destinations in order to keep my tank of gas full. Plus the game is chock full of insane humor, from witty dialogue with the NPCs, to hanging out at your good friend Morio's lab, not to be confused with that knockoff plumber who jumps on turtles. It's actually kind of funny because most of the time games on this list linger in my mind all year long, living rent-free in there until I write it down for this video. But Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom was actually one that I originally had sitting in my honorable mentions, and so I kept looking at it wondering why it was down there to begin with. And though there were a few games I enjoyed more than it, this game was so much fun. And strangely enough, I'm glad I lost my footage for it, so I could start a new run and capture some more. Back in 2022 when I did the same video, I had Escape Academy at my number 9 spot. I mentioned how much I enjoyed being challenged by intricate puzzles and finding clues hidden in the most unexpected places. Well, in 2024, I found another escape room game that was a bit more horrifying, but still just as fun. Coming in at number 6 is This Game Trying to Kill Me? After stumbling across this lost cabin in the woods, the owner shows up and tells you the only way out is by playing his game. Quite literally. In the middle of this cabin is an old PC running a video game. But what's crazy about this video game is that it interacts with the real world. Okay, not the real world, but the real world in the game, you know? Jump back and forth between the desk and the rest of the cabin to try and escape this hellhole with your life. Press buttons in the computer game that'll open doors, activate machines, and earn you strange money in the real world, and use those perks to unlock new areas of the cabin and progress further. Is this game trying to kill me isn't exactly scary. There may have been a jump scare or two along the way, but the tone and setting are definitely eerie, and I'm sure there's more comfortable places we'd all love to be. But the satisfaction of finding the answers to these sometimes challenging puzzles constantly gave me the dopamine hit that I love to feel in a puzzle game, making me feel super smart whenever the next door flies open or a hidden item drops from the ceiling. I'm just hoping in the near future we either get an expansion of this game, or is this game trying to kill me too? Now, normally I want to give a shout out to the Indie Maniac who came onto the podcast and showed me this game in the first place, but he sucks at chain together and tried to make it my problem. So forget about him and just go play the game. So we're officially past the halfway point, and my number 5 game is pretty niche, but if you're into cheesy reality TV, then this game is a must play. Isn't that right, big brother? Welcome to the Crush House, the hottest reality show of 1999. You'll play as the producer, the cameraman, the analytics provider, and pretty much everything else that realistically should require an entire team to accomplish. But the perks are something. Now, like I said, fans of trashy reality TV are going to feel right at home in this game. Your whole goal is to build a cast of 4 wild and crazy young adults so you can produce an entertaining reality show. Think cast members who will flirt with one another and make out on camera, but also house guests that will hate each other and fight every single chance they get. And though you're probably going to end up finding your favorites, you'll eventually learn about the different audiences that you have to please to make your show a success. From the wine moms who want insane action and slap fights, to the cinephiles who want dynamic angles and dramatic shots throughout the entire show. Now personally, I relate the most to the audience who just wants to see some ass. Big, juicy booty cheeks taking over my screen. That double wide backside becoming the focal point of my computer monitor.
Oh yeah. You guys asked for this with this CGDannyB bull all the time.
But for real, the absolute chaos of the Crush House is what keeps me so invested. Running around, having to find each house guest to make sure I capture their private moments for the entire world to see. Giving this non-stop adrenaline rush as you sprint from one side of the house to the other, trying to keep your job and get renewed for another season. The Crush House is another example of something AAA studios won't really take the time to touch. Meanwhile, indie studios are out here killing it with unique ideas that take us out of the mundane gaming rut. And come to think of it, I've got a Big Brother audition tape that I need to submit soon. So chat, if I happen to disappear for a few months this summer, you know what happened to me. Souls likes, I don't like them. They're challenging, the checkpoints are so far apart, and they make you feel bad by putting a big "you died" across the screen, and I hate this genre. Or so I thought. This year I realized that I don't hate Souls likes. I just hate From Software games. Now I have to be realistic here, this next game wouldn't exist if we didn't have games like Dark Souls and Bloodborne. But my number 4 game is much, much cuter. Another Crab's Treasure brought me so much delight, frustration, and overwhelming feelings of success that I could finally wrap my head around what it is Souls fans enjoyed, but in a setting and universe that I actually cared to be in. No, Another Crab's Treasure isn't easy, but it definitely fixed most, if not all, the gripes that I had with these types of games that kept me away for so long. If for some reason you're unfamiliar with the game, Another Crab's Treasure is about Krill, a little hermit crab whose shell gets repoed after not paying his taxes. And now he goes on a big adventure across the ocean to get his home back. And along the way, you're faced with some pretty nasty enemies. From annoying fish to weaponized squids to a behemoth of a crab with utensils attached to his claws. Good lord, was this guy a freaking mess to deal with. But as challenging as the game got, it never felt unfair. Sure, from time to time, a stupid bug would change the outcome of a fight. Sometimes in my favor. Die under the map? Did I really go under the map? Did the game just cheat for me? But most of the time, if I died, it was just me not being prepared for an attack, or timing my parries wrong, or thinking I can outdamage an enemy when clearly that was never an option. What made me think I didn't like this genre for so long was feeling like luck was always a factor when beating some of these bosses. And no, obviously it's not really luck-based, but it sure as hell feels like it sometimes. My experience with Another Crab's Treasure was actually getting to learn the encounters. And even when I was getting destroyed, the punishment was never go back to the beginning of the level. It was giving me the opportunity to try the boss again immediately, instead of having to retrace my steps before getting back to the fight. Couple that with the variety of shells you get to use, each with a unique special ability, and new upgrades after defeating major bosses, combat always had a way of feeling fresh when entering new areas. That is until I got the upgrade where I could make my fork into a hammer. Oh baby, I never went back. Plus, if you really need the help, there's this really cool accessibility feature where you could just pull out a gun and kill something instantly. You suck. Wasn't that easy? Now, I know that the director of the FromSoft games has made a statement that he wouldn't want to introduce an easy mode to his games because it takes away from the experience that was intended. And though I can respect that for the art, that just means I'm never going to play your games. Not out of some deep-rooted hatred or lack of desire to get good, but if I have to suffer for hours on end to try and enjoy your game, then I've got millions of other games that I can enjoy without the headache, or at least as severe of one. At the end of the day, regardless of whether you agree with me or not on FromSoft games, I found that I can enjoy these difficult challenges without feeling the need to bash my skull through this very thick desk that I've got. And we know that Aggro Crab is already working on their next game, so if it happens to be another Crab's Treasure 2, you can count me in.
All right, sir, it is your last hand of the round. What do we want to do?
Calm down, I'm trying. I just don't want to lose. So if I take... Oh, wait. Okay, hold on. I think I have this. How was that? Have I won?
Okay, hold on. You might have. Let me see. So you played a straight. That's going to be this. And you've got a times 14 multiplier, so that'll give you this. But if we look at your jokers, you do have the brothers from God of War. You have Brock and Sindri, which will give you additional points, and they also help you construct a better deck, so that's always a nice thing to have. Then if we move over, you also have the Bard from Shovel Knight, because Jimbo's got his friend Shovel Knight. It makes a lot of sense. So if we do that, that actually just made the elevator music play, but it does give you a morale boost, earning you additional points. And then you have Tiny Bones from Magic the Gathering, which actually lets you steal points from the last round, which you had a lot of points there. So we'll add those in there as well. And then you have a Crumble Cookie gift card. I guess you just got that for Christmas, but your family forgot you're diabetic, so that was kind of useless. But anyway, you still get points for it because Crumble's still pretty good. And with all that added together, we're looking at 398 trillion, 723 billion, 93 million, 868,000, and 436 points.
So would that mean that I won?
Yes, yeah, I think that's enough to win.
Yes, let's go!
You'd be insane if you thought Balatro wasn't going to make this list. Balatro was one of the first major indie hits from this year, and deservedly so. For the uninitiated, Balatro is a deck-building roguelike about poker, but you don't actually have to know how to play poker. The whole idea is to place cards that match a specific type of hand. So a high card, a full house, a straight, etc. And if you're like me and don't know what those are, no sweat. There's also a guide in the game for you. After each hand, your points are added up, and your goal is to hit a specific threshold. Now sure, this sounds simple on paper, but it's the jokers that make this game nuts. The jokers are special cards that add new mechanics to the game. Some of them will increase your multiplier depending on the numbers that you play, while others will count your points a second time as you play them, or even make everything one type of card, giving you the opportunity for some dope setups. Balatro is both simple yet insanely deep at the same time, which is what makes it such a masterpiece. Anybody could pick this up and learn it, even grandma if she can still read the tiny print on the cards. Balatro was even nominated for Game of the Year. Let me tell you how this is both the most exciting yet annoying thing in the world. I posted my short form review for Balatro back in February on TikTok, and it probably sat at a good 200 likes for most of the year. But once it got nominated for Game of the Year, some people had to do their research about what this game even was. And while many of you were intrigued and even ended up enjoying the game, I had far too many gamers who wanted to complain about the simplicity, the lack of a story, mentioning how this doesn't deserve to be nominated next to the likes of a Final Fantasy and Elden Ring, blah, blah, blah. God, you guys were so annoying. Honestly. But the noise of the fake gamers was easily drowned out by the awesome people who told me how much they loved the game after they actually tried it. And even for those of you who gave the game a shot and didn't find it to be your cup of tea, at least you tried it so you could actually have an opinion on the game. Because like the good old folks at Bikini Bottom said,
The only people who don't like
Balatro
have never
played it before.
this next game is one I knew I was gonna love. Hands down, no doubt in my mind, I'm gonna enjoy this game. But holy crap, did I really fall in love with this game. The number 2 game on my list is the adventure of a girl and her dog that tugged on every single heartstring that I owned, and possibly even stole some in the process. But this is Neva. For the same team that brought us Grist back in 2018, Neva is this stunning, beautiful, alluring, I'm running out of words in the thesaurus, just downright gorgeous game about Alba and her canine companion Neva. Your adventure sees you exploring this mysterious and breathtaking world as you watch your childish and timid puppy Bunny grow into not just a pet, but a best friend. One that can rip the throats out of some evil shadow monsters 1 minute and then cuddle up with you the next. Grist was a great puzzle platformer, but what I love so much more about Neva is that it introduces combat that isn't overly complicated, but makes for much more engaging gameplay. Even if my early access review code didn't let me use my controller for some reason, and we all know that platformers on keyboard are no bueno. But somehow I was so invested in playing this adventure, I didn't care. Cramming my fingers into a crab-like shape wasn't even a thought to me once I was neck deep in the fantastical world of Neva. I was fully focused on getting to watch not just my doggy best friends grow, but Alba as well. Going through the emotional struggles that this game placed in front of me, watching our hero overcome adversity in a world that is literally decaying right in front of them. And then I remembered I have a Steam Deck, and my controller worked wonders from there on out. For our first podcast recording after starting Neva, I just wanted to skip all the fluff, the intro, the viewer questions, etc., because I just wanted to gush about how much I loved this game so far. Instant fucking Game of the Year contender.
Whoa.
This shit was awesome. I love this game so damn much. Listen, it is no secret that I love Devolver Digital, seeing as 3 of their games made it onto this list. And not to put all the glory on the shoulders of the publishers here, but Devolver does a great job of finding amazing indie studios with amazing ideas and visions. To give a little bit of context of how I play games these days, I open the game, I open my recording software, and I just play. And every time something cool happens, I save a clip so I can use it later. And for Neva, I probably wore out my hotkey with how often I was saving clips. I even had to go and delete a crap ton of them because they were the same piece of footage, but with a few less seconds than what I needed. So take all that to say that I really like Neva. Now this video of my top indies could go on for hours. I love me some indies, and the list doesn't end. But we only have so many hours in the day, and I've already procrastinated enough. But just to make sure I get to talk about as many indie games as I possibly can, I want to run you through my honorable mentions. Games that I love that didn't quite make this list, be that because I like some games more or because of the rules that I set for this video. Plus, if I did this at the beginning of the video like I used to, you'd already know a bunch of the games that aren't in my top 10. And where's the fun in that? So, here are my honorable mentions. Caravan Sandwich is a cozy and immersive open world game that I didn't get to play at launch, but it was definitely a must play for me before the end of the year. And with an awesome soundtrack, gorgeous visuals, and a satisfying gameplay loop, Caravan Sandwich is a must-play for fans of open-world adventures. Next to Another Crab's Treasure, Black Myth Wukong was another title this year that told me that I don't hate Souls-likes. Getting to sit in a Discord call with 4 buddies, all talking about our builds, our experiences with bosses, and hearing Connor scream about bad hitboxes and cheap moves every time he died was definitely worth the price of admission. The first game that I got to review this year, Turnip Boy Robs a Bank builds on the existing world that we already know and gives this little vegetable man more reasons to go to jail. Introducing a unique roguelike experience to the franchise, all I can think about is what crime Turnip Boy will commit next. My guess? Probably murder or identity theft. Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip is the first game I think of when I talk about small open world games. It's not a game that features the scale of a big AAA open world, but it's filled with things to do and items to find around every corner. A game where the devs made sure to fill the world with enough to do without filling it with fluff. Plus, Terry really likes French fries. The first automation game that really sunk its hooks into me, Oddsparks, is a blast and a half. Constructing these little Pokemon-like creatures who operate your machines for you so that you can use those resources to build new machines across the world is such a great time sink. Luckily, I hadn't played any of the major updates yet, because I probably wouldn't have gotten to play anything else this year. For me, Hades 2 is an improvement in every way, shape, and form from the original game's formula. Introducing new gods, new attacks, and new weapons, Melno's adventure satisfied my gameplay desires more than the original. With the exception that we still don't have Ares in the game yet, so Supergiant, drop another diss track, and my life is yours. Made by one super chill dude, Animal Well is a chilling Metroidvania experience where you get to play as a chicken nugget trying not to get eaten by animals. Yes, I sort of play with the logic of the plot quite a bit, but tell me in practice that that isn't what this looks like. Regardless, the game is super fun, except for that stupid wolf cat dog thing. I will be calling animal control the next time that thing gets anywhere near me. Creatures of Ava is all about cleansing this distant planet and discovering the wildlife inhabiting it. Featuring stunning environments, a Zelda-esque musical minigame, a cool staff that shoots energy out for combat, and an awesome story about how we should treat our planet better, I've thought about Creatures of Ava a lot since I played it earlier this year. Crypt Custodian has what is easily my favorite cute but creepy art style. Playing as a poor little kitty who dies on Earth and unfortunately gets sentenced to hell for breaking a bunch of vases is up to you and your new friends who also have been sent to hell to fight your way to the afterlife that you truly deserve. BC Ball would have easily made my top 10, probably even my top 3, if I didn't set my own rules for not including early access titles. One of the more original takes on the creature catching genre that we've had in quite some time, this game is all about teaching animals to play volleyball. And even with the game technically being incomplete, it feels so freaking high quality. Plus they made some awesome plushes for the Kickstarter backers. We finally arrived at my game of the year, and if I'm being totally honest, I think this game has been overlooked. It wasn't nominated for the Game Awards, the Indie Game Awards, the Golden Joysticks. Heck, it wasn't even nominated for our own award show, but I blame Tofr for that. But I've been thinking about this game ever since it was revealed at the 2023 Xbox Showcase, the entire week I was playing it, and probably at least once a week since I've beaten it. And that game is Dungeons of Hinterberg. Dungeons of Hinterberg is an action-adventure game about Louisa, a person who's just burnt out at her day job and decides to go on a little vacation, or a slaycation, if you will. After making their trip to Hinterberg, a buzzing tourist attraction in the Austrian Alps, she sets out to do what no one's done before: complete all of the dungeons. There are 25 unique dungeons in Hinterberg, each one more challenging and intricate than the last. Something that I absolutely adore about Dungeons of Hinterberg is that each territory has a unique set of spells for you to cast. In one area, you may be using a giant bomb to blow up debris, while in the next zone, you'll be using a giant tornado to move across hazards and attack enemies. Each area introduces new puzzles for you to have to solve in new and unique ways, making Dungeons of Hinterberg feel fresh from start to finish. But combat and exploring aside, there's also relationships that you get to focus on as well. Now, unfortunately, they're not dating relationships. Trust me, I tried. But these companions you meet along the way will give you, the player, more advantages as you grow your bond with them. Some of them will give you weapons and tools, while others will give you improved health or potions. But more than just being the means for more cool trinkets, they're also just insanely interesting people. From the blacksmith who's about to lose her shop to the city, to the seasoned adventurer who's losing the love for slaying monsters. The more time you spend with them, the more they reveal about themselves, making them feel less like NPCs who just sell you stuff and more like friends. Dungeons of Hinterberg is just so freaking fun. That's really it. Now, a little behind the scenes here, this is the part where making this video gets tough. Because in the past, I've talked about why my games of the year were so impactful for me. Like when I talked about God of War and the father-son interactions that I could relate to with my father. Or about how Deathloop crushed my expectations with the amount of things that I got to do and seeing myself represented as a person of color in a video game. Or even how Cult of Lamb was funny because I got to watch my Twitch viewers eat poop. As I was sitting down to write this script, I felt forced to find a really solid reason that I needed to love this game above anything else this year. What made me enjoy it more than Neva? Why was it more fun than Balatro? But ultimately, I just think it comes down to I really dug this game. Getting to explore the scenic Alps, be that climbing mountains or sailing down a toxic river, Dungeons of Hinterberg had me always in the mood to just keep going, never wanting to stop. Preparing to save the game so I can go to bed, but knowing that I'm just going to sit up for another hour or two thinking about the game and where I could possibly end up next. Not everything we enjoy has to have some deep philosophical and personal reason for why we love it. Obviously it can, and I'm sure if I took the time to do some real soul searching, I could find that reason. But at the end of the day, I just really enjoyed Dungeons of Hinterberg. This game is filled with quality, tells a great story about finding yourself, and had me hooked from the moment that I hit the start button until I finally rolled credits at the end of my adventure. And that's all that matters to me. And there you have it, my top 10 indie games of 2024. Real talk, these videos take a lot of effort to make. Not only capturing footage all year long, but making my brain work on scripting it and then filming and editing the whole thing, it's a ton of work. So if you could do me a huge favor and hit the like button, I think asking for 2 seconds of your time to hit that little thumbs up is a fair ask for the video, right? But also, I want to give a huge shout out to all of the indie developers out there. Whether your game is featured in this video or not, I played so freaking many indie games this year. It's your desire to make something so personal, emotional, and original that helps me find the love for games that I have to this day. If you guys enjoyed this video and want to stick around for some more indie gaming content, including our podcast where we talk all things indie gaming, then be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the amazing content we got coming to you this year. Oh, and speaking of the podcast, by the time this video comes out, we should have already dropped our podcast episode where Tofr and I combined our top 10 lists, making our own playlog top 10 indie games of 2024. Well, top 10, but you understand that when you watch it. Anyway, I'm done talking for today. Thank you guys again for watching. Be sure to have a happy new year. Let me know what your favorite games from 2024 were in the comments below, and play more indie games.